Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now what I want to do today is talk about treating yourself when you are quitting gambling. Now when you decide you're going to stop gambling, it's not so much about rewarding yourself for not gambling, but there are actually quite a lot of practical reasons why you should treat yourself whilst you're in the midst of recovery, while you are recovering from gambling. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, of course, it's nice to set a target and say, look, if I don't gamble for a month, I'm going to buy myself X, Y, Z. That is, of course, a reason to treat yourself. It gives you something to aim for. It gives you a target and a potential reward at the end of that. What I would say, though, because when I first started trying to quit gambling, I thought, well, I worked out in my head how much money I'd lost, over, say, the past year. And I thought, if I don't gamble for the next year, if I don't gamble for the next 12 months, then I could buy a Range Rover. I've always wanted to buy a Range Rover. Well, that's a lie. I've actually had a couple and sold them for various reasons, mainly because they're pretty rubbish. But for some reason, it's one of those things that keeps going back to you, thinking, yeah, I want to buy that. So I thought, if I don't gamble for the next 12 months, then actually with the money I potentially could have lost, I could go out and I could buy myself a Range Rover. Great idea in principle, but fundamentally flawed. When I talk about quitting gambling, I say that one thing I don't do is count the days. Now, there's a reason I don't count days, because the next target and the next target and the next target always seems incredibly far away to me. Also, I find when you're counting days, as a side note, is that if you do have a lapse or a relapse, resetting that counter to zero, I believe, has more of a negative, detrimental effect on your mental well-being, and actually is likely to make a lapse become a relapse, because it gives you that feeling of helplessness and that kind of, oh well, I can't quit, why not? So the reason setting this 12-month target of saving all this money through not gambling and then buying this extravagant, expensive item at the end of the 12 months, it was too far in the distance to contemplate actually happening. It's like when you give up gambling, you can't. It's very hard to say to yourself, I'm never going to gamble again, although ultimately that is the end goal. If you say to yourself, I'm never going to gamble again, it almost seems like too big a task. It seems like too much of a mountain to climb. And that's why people break it down and say, well, one day at a time. So how should I have treated myself? And the way you should treat yourself when you quit gambling, in my opinion, is little and often. And to me, and you, if you're recovering from gambling, this may seem like you're treating yourself little and often. But in reality, what it actually is probably spending money more in the way that normal people, i.e. people who aren't addicted to gambling or aren't problem gamblers or gambling addicts, it's more akin to the way that non-gambling addicts spend their own money, because they are actually buying themselves things. As a gambling addict, you generally don't buy yourself an awful lot of things. You don't treat yourself to relatively minor things because you have that money earmarked for gambling. You don't want to spend your potentially gambling tokens on normal everyday things that you might want to buy. So these things may have come to be in your head as such as extravagant. Say you want to buy yourself, a new pair of jeans. You might want to spend even 15, 20 quid on a new pair of jeans, because that's 15, 20 quid that you want to save for your gambling. So these relatively modest purchases have in your head become luxury items, have become a treat. So that's the great thing. You can do this now, little and often, and actually it will still feel like a treat because it's not something that you're used to buying for yourself. So that's the first reason to do little and often. Another reason why you do little and often in terms of treating yourself is because as gamblers, as with a lot of vices and a lot of addictions, and I include things like social media in this, and I'll do a separate video on that another time, is because the thing we're addicted to gives us instant gratification. We indulge in it and we get something back from it straight away. And in our case, that would be a dopamine hit. But it's the same as drugs, it's the same as alcohol, like I say, same as social media, as sex, as pornography, as anything that you have an addiction to. The reason you're addicted to it is because it gives you that instant gratification. So if you are at the beginning of, say, this month, at the beginning of March, say, right, if I don't gamble in March, at the end of March, I'm going to buy myself something. The problem with that, and as was the problem with my Range Rover Target, of course, was that I wasn't getting the instant gratification from the money. I wasn't getting anything back from the cash that I had in my pocket. And I spoke about this in one of my payday videos. If you have cash in itself, money, numbers in the bank, figures on a piece of paper, they might give you a bit of satisfaction, they might be nice to look at, but they don't give you any real gratification. So what you need to do is learn to gradually, slowly, and within your means, convert those numbers on a piece of paper into something real, into something that actually will give you pleasure. Otherwise, what will you do? Well, you'll revert back to what you know gives you pleasure, what you know gives you satisfaction. And in our case, that would be gambling. Another reason, of course, to treat yourself little and often and buy yourself things, not extravagant things, just to buy yourself things, is just that. So you have things. I commented before on one of my videos, because I think in one of my videos I was wearing a Gucci t-shirt or something like that. Well, it's something expensive. Actually, no, it was the Stone Island jacket that a couple of people commented on. I bought that, not using this little and often method, because obviously that's quite an extravagant purchase. But I bought that with a big gambling win. I had a decent sized gambling win, and I went out and I bought that jacket. It's the same reason that I'm wearing a Supreme hoodie, and I've got, this isn't me showing off, or look at all these fancy things I've got. The reason I did it is because I knew that if I kept hold of that money, then I would waste it, I would lose it gambling again. So if I bought clothing is quite hard to resell. Well, some of it is. But I would always have that. It'd always be something I would have as a result of me actually working for a living, rather than working my arse off every day and not having anything because I'm losing it all gambling. So that was the reason I sort of bought these things. And it works very much in the same way, treating yourself for abstaining. You have a constant stream of things coming in, and God forbid you relapse. You've actually spent your money, and as a bonus, you have less money available to you because you're spending it on normal everyday things. You have less money available to you to go out and gamble, and that is one of the sides of the triangle. Now, the way this works best is if you get paid daily, ideally, but weekly. You put obviously aside your money for rent, bills and whatever. If you've got someone who can help you with that, that's great. But then whatever you've got left over at the end of that day or week, you can spend on yourself. You have no carry forward income. You have no big sums of money sat in the bank that you've got to spread out over, an extended period of time. You can use this money, and then that eliminates the money side of the gambling triangle, because you don't have available funds with which to gamble. So that's my advice. Like I say, by all means set yourself goals, and if you've got the means to set yourself big goals, then, maybe there's no harm in doing that. But I have done that, and I can see the temptation, because I looked at my gambling habits. I actually went through a year's worth of bank statements, and I can tell which ones were gambling related, because not just the ones that were online casinos, or the ones that were over the counter and bookmakers. I could tell, because a lot of them were from those stupid little mobile cash points you get in pubs and bars and casinos and all the rest of it that charge you for your transactions. So if I saw a withdrawal of £301.75, I knew that I was in a place where I was likely to be gambling. So I could work out with a reasonable amount of accuracy how much I'd spent on gambling over the year. And it came to X amount of thousands of pounds. So yeah, in your head it's quite a nice idea to go, right, I'm going to save that X amount of thousands of pounds next time around, and I'm going to spend it on something quite luxurious. But like I say, you don't get any gratification for this long-term goal, unfortunately. And as gamblers and addicts of all sorts, you really crave the instant hit of dopamine, that instant gratification, the instant result from your money. So Do something regularly. Do a little thing, even if it's buy a new T-shirt or something. It doesn't have to be expensive. Or if you've got a hobby, even better, spend your money on that. One last thing I'll say about this. I've been meaning for ages and ages, and I did start, but it's a lot of work, to do a series on recovering from gambling debts and paying off your gambling debts. Now, one thing you'll do as part of repaying gambling debts is you'll complete a number of income and expenditure forms. If you're making offers to creditors, if you're arranging payment plans, you will have to fill in multiple income and expenditure forms. If you are in the process of doing this, I'll give you one hint. Make sure you're honest. Leave yourself enough money. If there is a hobbies and interest section, if there's an alcohol section, if there's a smoking section, then complete these honestly. If you drink, put that you drink. Put how much you like to spend on drink, and even add a bit more. Because if you don't, you'll end up not being able to purchase these items. You'll not be able to fund your hobbies. You'll not be able to go out for a few beers. And aside from that being annoying, it will actually retrospectively do two things. It will make your life gambling feel like it was better because you weren't giving up these things while you were gambling. And secondly, excuse me, so it'll make your life, it'll make your life retrospectively feel better. And secondly, you'll feel inclined to maybe try and risk some of the money that you're either due to pay back or is, earmarked for bills or your rent or whatever. You might be tempted to go and risk a bit of that to try and win some money to then go out and socialise or fund your hobby. And you'll be depressed, and depression and gambling go hand in hand. So if you are going through that and you are filling in your income and expenditure forms, be honest. Chalk up your recreational spending. It's an allowable form of expenditure. And so you can continue to treat yourself very little, but you can still continue to treat yourself little and often, and stave off that need to gamble and that pot of gold that you're not going to reach. Anyway, it's getting dark. Thanks very much for watching. If you like the video, like the video. If you don't like the video, dislike it, but drop us a comment either way. Let me know what you think. Let me know your opinions and your experiences, and if you have any other tips to share. If you're new around here, welcome to the channel. If you're not new around here, welcome back to the channel. I'd love it if you subscribed. It'd be great. And on that note, have a great day, have a great evening, have a great weekend whenever you're watching this, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.